course, not forgetting that it's not only businesses on the ground that are being affected by the spate of power outages. So from drought to floods, the rainy season has come with full force and forced the country into floods in some parts of the country. And the current state of rolling blackouts is also not helping, with the agricultural sector found between a rock and a hard place on whether to go ahead with planting or grapple with load shedding. So to tell us more, we are joined from our Pretoria studios by Deputy Executive Director of AgriSA, Christo. Rheede. Thank you very much for coming on to our program. So firstly, your impression about this problem that everybody is feeling here. What do you have to be saying about load shedding and the floods in the country as far as your sector is concerned?
Remember, many of our farmers are big exporters. For example, the table grape producers along the Orange River, they are currently harvesting their produce to be sent overseas. That produce must be safeguarded or kept in cold storage facilities. If there's no electricity, it means that produce can be spoiled, and it will not be accepted by our buyers, international buyers. So that presents a major risk and a major threat to the industry itself. At the same time, many of our livestock producers need to keep their produce in cold storage facilities. Butcheries and abattoirs all need electricity to maintain the supply chain. And that in itself poses serious risk. So hopefully Eskom will be able to overcome this challenge as soon as possible. If they are not going to do it, it will put a lot of tremendous pressure on the industry itself.
Your sector is facing a double whammy here. You had to deal with drought, and obviously that affects harvesting, and your animals would get leaner. On the other hand, when the rain's expected, you get an oversupply of rain, and it affects the crops as a result. So what happens then when you have to strike a balance between expecting a bumper crop harvest and dealing with the alleviation of floods and coming out of the drought that you have been facing?
I think the expectation of a bumper crop is sometimes overrated, because a farmer cannot just go and plant. He needs certain inputs, and that is where the big cost factor are sort of or lies. Farmers need to buy fertilizer, they need to buy diesel, they need to maintain their tractors. There's a labor cost that's also applicable. And in top of it, in many other commodities, farmers need to pay, for example, certain licensing fees if they, for example, plant a specific variety of crop. So there's a huge challenge, especially on the input side. And once the farmer has planted the crop, then they need to wait for that crop to mature before they can harvest it. And on the output side, there's another bigger challenge. If the price is not right, if commodity prices drop, then it means they will not be able to recover their cost. So farming is one of the high risk, of the most riskiest businesses that any person can venture into. And we need government support. Remember, farmers are facing a massive drought for the past 4 to 5 years, especially in the Northern Cape, parts of the Eastern Cape, parts of the Western Cape. On top of it, we are now facing a massive outbreak of foot and mouth disease. So it's a never-ending, battle that farmers face out there. And yes, we need to have a more sympathetic ear from government because farmers, struggle at this point in time to maintain a sustainable business.
And more so that you are not subsidized as farmers in South Africa. One would ask the question, do you expect the situation to spiral out of control given that you are faced with this double whammy that I have referred to? On the other hand, you're going to produce less and you're going to export less. And as a result, faced with the problem of more imports in as far as grain and meat from South America, Brazil, for example, where now you have local production being low and oversupply of foreign goods coming into the country and thus subduing your economic activity in the country. How do you respond to this?
I think it's critical that we need to understand what do we import and what do we export. We export high value crops, for example, macadamia nuts. We export citrus. We export deciduous fruit because those products earn quite a lot of foreign exchange for the country, and the country needs that. On the other hand, we import, for example, rice because we do not produce rice. We also import wheat. Wheat over the years has become a very expensive commodity to be produced in South Africa. And given the volatile climate in South Africa, it is a very sensitive crop. We depend to a large extent now on imports. But on the other hand, we've got a massive poultry industry in South Africa. And that is where our challenge lies. Instead of government protecting our poultry industry, we allow dumping of poultry into South Africa. And that, again, is completely unnecessary. We've also allowed the dumping of sugar into the South African market, whereas we should have protected our industry through tariffs and things like that. So government has a very specific role to play, and we engage with government from time to time, especially with regards to the dumping of poultry into the South African market, because it is not necessary.
All right, Christo, thank you very much for making time to come through to our program. And of course, Christo Rheede is from AgriSA talking to us about how the agricultural sector is affected by the floods and of course these power outages. And of course, he was coming to us live from our Pretoria studios. We're going to take a break, and of course we will continue to dig deeper on how the situation regarding load shedding is affecting the South African